AI agents are everywhere, automating tasks and making decisions at machine speed. But agents make mistakes. Just one rogue agent can do big damage before you even notice. Rubrik Agent Cloud is the only platform that helps you monitor agents, set guardrails, and rewind mistakes, so you can unleash agents, not risk. Accelerate your AI transformation at Rubrik.com. That's RUBRIK.com.
Fall is all about cozy comforts, but when you're prioritizing your health, it's easy to feel like you're missing out. With Hero Bread, you can enjoy all your fall favorites because they're made with Hero Bread sliced bread loaves, tortillas, bagels, dinner rolls, and more. Try their all-new Hero Noodles with 12 grams of protein and just 80 calories. You won't believe Hero Bread's options have 0 to 5 grams net carbs and are high fiber from the taste and texture. They've even got small batch drops of indulgent favorites like the popular Hero Croissant. And right now, Hero Bread is offering 10% off your order. Go to hero.co and use code FALL25 at checkout. That's FALL25 at HERO.co. All figures are per serving of Hero Bread. Contains 2 to 18 grams of fat per serving. See the product nutrition panels on hero.co for more information.
Trauma doesn't just live in your memories, your fascia, or your nervous system. It can also reshape your immune system, especially when no one helped you feel safe. That doesn't mean it's your fault, and that doesn't mean your body isn't on your side. It means that your body has been on your side this whole time, trying to protect you the only way it knew how. And if trauma and stress can shift the immune system one way, then safety, support, and somatic healing can slowly help shift it in another direction.
Hey, beautiful soul, and welcome to Dear Body, I'm Listening, the podcast for women navigating chronic symptoms, invisible illness, and that daily dance between hope and exhaustion. If you've ever been told it's all in your head, well, this podcast is for you because your body is not lying and neither are you. Hi, I'm Donna Piper, movement therapist, Pilates instructor, and chronic illness navigator. After years of being dismissed, misdiagnosed, and doing everything quote unquote right, but still getting sicker, I created this space to tell our truth. Here we talk about swelling, brain fog, nervous system crashes, and the kind of symptoms that don't always show up on lab results. We're going to explore lymph, breath, movement, self-trust, latest research, books, relationships, basically everything. All from a place of compassion and honesty. This isn't about fixing your body. It's about finally being heard and getting some answers. Hey friend, running low? Me too. I'm Donna. This is Dear Body, I'm Listening. We're in it together.
Hey, beautiful soul. Welcome back to Dear Body, I'm Listening. This is part 3 of my series on how trauma rewrites pain. In part 1, I talked about fascia, that connective tissue web that literally holds your trauma stories in your body. In part 2, we went into the autonomic nervous system. This is why so many of us are stuck in fight and flight and how that shows up as crashes, flares, symptoms, gut issues, and chronic exhaustion. And today, we're taking a deep breath and walking into a big one. How trauma, stress, and medical dismissal can change your immune system and raise the risk for autoimmune and chronic illness. This is where my old career as a dance movement psychotherapist and my lived reality with lipedema, MCAS, POTS, hypermobility EDS, and chronic fatigue collide.
Real talk, no gloss, just us. Now let's dive in.
There was a season, honestly, it wasn't that long ago, where every new symptom I had got was filed under the same 2 labels. Your labs are normal, and maybe you should work out more and eat less. And I'd be sitting in the exam room. My legs were throbbing. My weight was being especially in the lower half of my body. So it wasn't my whole body, but it was going up exponentially and rapidly. And my stomach was hurting. I was really tired. And I'd always hear the same stuff. Well, looking at your labs, you're okay. But based on your age, you're probably in menopause. And I'm like, okay, well, let's do something with my hormones then. Well, no, your hormones are fine. So we're not going to prescribe you anything. What about your stress level? How's that going? Well, there was the pandemic. I got viral pneumonia before the pandemic. that I never really shook. My mom got lung cancer. We moved, we bought a house, yeah. So I have been under a lot of stress, but I still work out every day. I still walk every day. I still eat really clean. So I don't really understand why this is happening. And they would just look back at my blood results and say, well, everything looks fine. Maybe let's try this. Maybe let's try this. They thought it might be blood cancer, but luckily it wasn't. But still, my frustration grew with every doctor that I seen. And this was just when my symptoms got bad. Before that, for the last 15 years, I was going to lots of functional medical doctors, and they too had nothing really to report. Basically, I was fine. It was probably just how I was eating. I was probably lying to them about how I was eating and exercising. And if I changed that and took tons of supplements, then I'd be fine. And that wasn't really the case. But then after, I don't know, probably 10 doctors, literally, I was like, okay, well, maybe that is true. Maybe there is nothing wrong with me. Maybe I do just need to be even more strict on my diet and my exercise. And just being invalidated for decades just turned all of that invalidation inward. And I was like, well, maybe there's just something wrong with me. Nothing else happened. And I did a lot of my own research. I read tons of books. I looked online, any kind of program I could to figure it out. And I decided I was just the problem. And I knew there was something missing, but I didn't know how to get any answer. So I doubled down on being good again, clean eating, movement, supplements, mindset work. And then I needed to cancel a lot of things with my friends and family because I just wasn't getting any better. My exhaustion was getting worse. And I also would tell myself sometimes other people have it worse. It's not like it's cancer. You don't have this, major thing. Stop being dramatic. And I pushed and I pushed and I pushed. And when it didn't work out or I crashed, I was like, well, maybe it's just a willpower issue. Maybe it's just a constitution issue. Like I didn't have the right constitution for things. And maybe if I figured out how to have the right constitution, everything would be better. But the truth is, my body was sending me a totally different message. My migraines that I've always had, and looking back through a lot of different symptoms I had where I'd have migraines for 3 months and then they'd go away in different phases. These are all big red flags that if any doctors listened to me, I might have got some relief on how to manage my symptoms, on to manage my different diseases. My legs were getting more swollen and more painful. It was getting harder to walk and bend and normal things I used to do, like sit down on the ground, even doing a child's pose, anything that was getting harder to do. And walking was getting to be more difficult. And my immune system was acting like the world was on fire. It reacted to all foods, smells, stress, everything. And it had for a really long time, but this time it was even worse, especially food. Everything I put into my mouth made me double over in pain. I looked 6 months pregnant. So food wasn't satisfying, mainly because I don't have a big appetite. But then also my body would definitely freak out every time I ate anything. So then eating was less and less appealing. And knowing what I know now, that my nervous system was already stuck in a high alert, and this was from decades of having the symptoms and being undiagnosed and not knowing how to treat them, and all of that pushing through, there came a real gut punch moment when I remembered reading one of the first research papers about childhood trauma and autoimmune disease. And seeing in black and white that women with multiple adverse childhood experience has a much higher risk of being hospitalized with autoimmune diseases later in life. So I know from having a hypermobility, there is some more and more research connected to autism, ADHD, and autism and ADHD combined, and how things are processed and more sensitive to different things. So I looked at all the stress I was under as a kid, and a lot of it was the stress I put under myself. So that's when I thought, wait, I'm not weak. There's nothing wrong with me. My immune system has just been in fight and flight ever since I was a kid, and I'm 53. So of course, all these years, my body was just trying to do what it can to manage and to live. And of course, knowing that knowledge, or me even sharing that knowledge, if it resonates with you, didn't magically fix anything. But it did give me another huge perspective shift of like, okay, there's nothing wrong with me. I'm normal, quote unquote. If you look at my constitution of all of my diseases, how I'm functioning is pretty damn good. But I want a way to support that. So I've had to piecemeal everything together. And that's why I'm doing these podcasts, is because I need to find out how all of my diseases first overlap, and then what things I could do for each to just make my flares lessen, make my quality of life better. And I started by asking myself better question: what if my immune system is doing something exactly what was trained to do in a world that never felt safe? So my body just never felt safe. I never got any sort of really astounding medical care my whole life. So that is the lived part. Now let's connect the dots.
Now it's time for the connective thread, where the story meets the science.
This is where science and story meet. We've talked about fascia. We've talked about the autonomic nervous system. Now we're going to zoom out and look at the immune system, the part of you that's supposed to know friend or foe. Here's what I know from the research, and also from my body and some of the stories I've heard from other people out there. Childhood trauma and chronic stress change the immune system. Large studies have shown that people with multiple adverse childhood experiences, so that's called ACEs, there's an online, kind of just form you could fill out with some questions about it. They have significantly higher risk of being hospitalized with autoimmune diseases later in life, things like rheumatoid arthritis, thyroid disease, and connective tissue conditions. And where PTSD and severe stress are linked to higher rates of autoimmune disease as well. People living with PTSD, which is post-traumatic stress disorder, have been found to have an increased risk of conditions like lupus, again, rheumatoid arthritis, inflammatory bowel disease, and others. Abuse and neglect are not just emotional. Emotional and physical abuse, neglect, and early stress have been associated with higher autoimmune rates in women, including lupus and thyroid disease. So those are all from studies of how they've really looked at these connections. And you don't need any numbers really or memorized, but what matters is that your history is not separate from your biology. Your immune system remembers what you survived, how you lived, maybe even with, you have to remember all of these things: mast cell, hypermobility, chronic fatigue, everything, the POTS, all of this goes in together, that your body is just doing so much work behind the scenes to function, to live. And then that creates this kind of unstable environment internally. And then when any stressors or any stress on the outside, so it doesn't mean you have to have any sort of super horrible thing happen to you, or even that you had a bad childhood or your parents were bad or anything like this. I'm not saying any of that stuff. What I am saying is that having these issues, specifically the ones I have, these diseases, and having a childhood full of stress or a life full of stress on top of it, it's just kind of, we're already fully reacting like we're in a fight situation. And maybe we really aren't, but our immune system is. So then any sort of significant distressing event that comes through that you perceive or take on or hear or surround, then it adds to that, because we just weren't told that, hey, you have this, your sympathetic nervous system and your parasympathetic nervous system are not working together as they should. And this is how you deal with it. This is how you practices that you need to do in order to allow your body to calm down. And here's some supportive supplements or medications or foods to eat or not eat. So because we're never told that, let's just remember that it's no one's fault. It's just that that's how our bodies operate. And because of that, we are more prone to having some autoimmune issues in life if you had early stressors or chronic stressors, or were in a very stressful environment, say a war or something like that, if you're ex-military and you have PTSD. So maybe some of this has resonated, maybe something hasn't. I'm not blaming anything on the past. I'm just putting this in focus of what some research has said about these connections. So let's make this a little bit more practical, how this might look in a real body, mostly mine, but maybe yours. And maybe some of these parts might sound familiar, maybe not. So if you've lived through any childhood stress, bullying, family chaos, or abuse, but you told yourself it wasn't that bad, you learned to people please, overfunction, ignore your needs to be safe. Your nervous system got really good at scanning for danger, even when it wasn't there in any room. And fast forward 10, 20, 30 years, suddenly you're dealing with chronic inflammation, weird infections, autoimmune labs that don't really show anything, or a body that feels like it's attacking itself, or just doesn't feel normal, just doesn't feel like it's responding how it should. So if you eat food, your belly, most people's bellies don't swell up to look like you're 6 months pregnant. So if you add in genetic predispositions, viral triggers, even Epstein-Barr, COVID, mono, and they're even saying that it could have been chronic strep throat. Hormonal shifts, environmental stressors, and your immune system is like that coworker who never left crisis mode after the big deadline. It's still on red alert even at 3 a.m. on a Tuesday. And here's the part I want you to tattoo on your heart. That doesn't mean that you created your illness with your thoughts or your situation or anything else. It means your body adapted to survive, and now it needs the support to feel safe again.
Mythbuster. Less hype, more help.
Now let's burn a couple myths to the ground, lovingly, of course. Myth 1, if your labs are normal, the pain isn't real. Labs don't measure fascia tension, nervous system deregulation, microtraumas to connective tissue, and the long shadow of medical trauma and dismissal. Normal labs with abnormal suffering does not equal you're fine. It equals they don't have the right tool to measure your reality. Myth 2, you attracted this with negative thinking or low vibes. Absolutely not. Could stress and unprocessed trauma influence your immune system? Yes, the research suggests that. Does that mean you chose or manifested autoimmune disease because you weren't positive enough? No. No, and again, no. You're not a failed manifestation. You're a human being whose body was walked through stress, genetics, environment, and a medical system that often didn't protect you. The more honest, less sexy truth is trauma, stress, infection, environment, and genetics all interacted. You didn't cause it alone, and you do not have to fix it alone either.
Feel good flow time. Micro moves, macro reliefs. Let's breathe together.
So let's do something really simple together. If you're able to get into a position that feels supported, lying down, propped up on pillows, or sitting with your back against a chair, preferably not driving or doing anything when you're operating anything, do this when you have some time. And I want you to place one hand over your heart and the other hand over your belly. And if that's uncomfortable, just rest your hands wherever it feels okay. And then slowly inhale through your nose for a count of 4. And then exhale through your mouth for a count of 6. And then on your next exhale, whisper to your body, "Thank you for protecting me even when it's messy." Picture yourself in your body and imagine your immune system, not as a broken system, but as a team that's been working overtime without enough support or clear instructions. Maybe you picture a tiny overcaffeinated security guards, that's your histamines, or a fire alarm that's a little too sensitive, the one that goes off in your kitchen when you're trying to cook, or just a big fuzzy ball of light that's doing its best. However you try to imagine your immune system, just connect with it. And on each exhale, say, you can stand down a little. I'm now listening. And do this about 3, 5, 10 breaths, whatever it takes. No forcing, no perfect. If you get distracted, it's fine. Just come back to the hand on your body and this one sentence. You can stand down a little. I'm listening now. And as you repeat that over and over, see if that little army of fighters that are ready to protect you at any moment are just listening a little bit. There's a little bit more calm. There's a little less activity. Because this is not a cure, but is it a tiny conversation with your immune system that says, hey, you're not alone anymore. I'm here with you. And that connection of just kind of understanding your body and taking a moment to bring all these parts together so you don't have to be in overdrive. And these are these small little exercises you could do over and over. And there's many of them. Start to retrain your body and rewire that from a place of unsafety to a place of safety. And it takes time and it's baby steps and it's not just one and done. It's really just kind of figuring out what your body needs. So now your body could start to downregulate. We want to try to get it over into the rest and digest, but it's not just automatic. It's not just one thing you do. It's a series of retraining your body that felt unsafe for so long. Now it feels safe.
This is shared education and lived experience, not medical advice, and is not meant to be. Check in with your body, check in with your clinician, and find out what fits your life.
So here's the big takeaway from part 3. Trauma doesn't just live in your memories, your fascia, or your nervous system. It can also reshape your immune system, especially when no one helped you feel safe. That doesn't mean it's your fault, and that doesn't mean your body isn't on your side. It means that your body has been on your side this whole time, trying to protect you the only way it knew how. And if trauma and stress can shift the immune system one way, then safety, support, and somatic healing can slowly help shift it in another direction. In part 4, we're going to talk about what trauma-informed healing actually looks like for the chronically ill body, how you work with your capacity, not against it, tiny nervous system safe practices you can do even on a flare day. And if this episode made you feel less alone or even gave you language for something you felt you couldn't explain, please share it with a friend who's been told their symptoms are just stress. And if you feel called to leave a rating or a review, it helps the show reach the women who are still being told that it's all in their head. You can find more tools, blog posts, and support over at my website, donnapiper.com, and come hang out with me on Instagram at the Donna Piper. Until next time, remember, your body isn't broken. She's been trying to keep you alive in a world that didn't understand her. Dear body, I'm listening, and I am so glad you are here.
You've been listening to Dear Body, I'm Listening. Now it's time to remember to be gentle with your capacity, meet yourself where you are, and if this has helped, send it to a friend who also needs a soft reminder and a gentle place to land. If this episode made you feel even more seen, brought you clarity, or reminded you that you're not alone, please take a moment to rate, review, and send it to someone who needs that same reminder. You can find more tools, blog posts, and support over at donnapiper.com. And hey, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Got a question for me? Every month I do a listener coaching episode, and I'd love to hear from you. Send your questions, stories, or flare-up confessions to donna@donnapiper.com. And you just might hear your answer on the show. Until next time, dear body, I'm listening, and I am so glad that you are here.